Everyone, Karen the Warp Spinster here. Welcome to my channel. Thank you for taking some time to sit and sew, or at least think about sewing and some creative ideas. Although I have to say that today I'm not feeling incredibly creative. I want to just sit down and sew and do something a little different, play with things, but not have to think too hard about it. So I have my bin of black and white prints, a little bit of white, and a stash of some leftover brights, prints and solids. And I would like to kind of play off of something or do a variation of something that we did earlier. Way back when, once upon a time, we worked on these strips where I just had white strips and then just did a sew and flip across it with black and white pieces of varying widths, and then one accent piece, which I really like this. Honestly, I'd forgotten about it, so I may need to come back to this. These are an equal width. These are 1.5 inches wide, so they'll finish at 1 inch. I think for the project I have in mind today, I would make them, well, they'll be a little different color, whatever, than that one, but I think I want them to be varying widths. So I will be drawing on some black and white strips. Those look pretty narrow, and then fitting these pieces into it, the bright pieces. And I'm planning for it to be alternating, so I'll have this strip and then insert a piece of this of some width, and then a random length of this again, and then insert a different one in there. So it will just be a slice and spliced strip. And what I have in mind is to then use those, well, my original plan for today was to do 5 different ways to use these strips. And that may still be my plan for upcoming weeks. But for this one, I want to go back to one of my old favorites, which is a log cabin. It could be a wonky log cabin, could just be an uneven size, but an improv log cabin using these strips. So typically with log cabin, although you don't have to do it, you would have a diagonal line, and half of it, one corner of it would be one color and another, or dark and light more typically. And I think I probably want to do that. So I could either do white, so this would be the dark, and then white would be the light. I could do this and then have black. So this would be the light and the black would be the dark. Or I could do, first thing I'd try to pull out is a stripe, of course. Or I could do it so that I had mostly white and mostly black. I guess this one's pretty even, but compared to that one, it's pretty dark. So I have some options. I think I will kind of leaning toward this and white to see how that looks. So I'll do that, do a few strips of that, and at least 3 strips of that, and then 2 or 3 strips of white with as big a variety of this as I can, of brights as I can find. And this is fairly narrow, but it's all right. It's already cut, so we're going to use it. I racked out my back doing yard work yesterday, so I'm moving a little not great today. And then I just want random lengths in between here. I am just going to make them straight up because, as I said, I just really don't want to have to think very much today. Not sure I could think very much today. And we could have, I have to have at least enough there to do my seams. And then a little bit, of course. Let's do another long one. I don't want the spaces to be too long because I want a little, I guess, staccato of the brights, but I still want that contrast with the background, I'll call it. Actually, these don't have to be in any order. I can just do whatever. So all I'm doing is trying to keep them basically perpendicular to the outside, so they're straight vertical cuts. Order doesn't really matter. And now I'm just going to insert some pieces in those spaces. I will just interject here that I do have bright 2.5 inch squares, and I am not opposed to having a 2.5 inch strip in there. So rather than cut these up to fit here, I'm going to save the 2.5 inch squares for a 2.5 inch strip. And I have a choice of either cutting these 1.5 inches and then, you know, whatever length I want, or splicing some stuff in and straightening the edges. And I guess I'm more inclined to cut 1.5 inch wide pieces for this. And I think that'll be less messy in the end. I have done some sewing. I've had a little bit of chocolate. I have stretched out my back a little, and I am ready to go forward with this. Now I could do a log cabin that has all the light side being from this strip or this strip, and the same for the dark side. Or I could mix them, or I could do more strips and really mix them up. I tend to think that I want to mix them because I want to kind of see how that is going to look. So I think I will do that. And the other decision to make is the center of the block. Do I want it to be a solid color like white or black? Do I want it to be a black and white print? Or do I want it to be a bright? I'm leaning toward having a diagonal center. Could start out as square, so I could just do an HST, half square triangle, and then because these are different widths, the block is going to turn out to not be square in the end. Or I could start it out as a rectangle that's on an angle, which I guess is actually more what I'm thinking about doing. And of course I could make it wonky. We've done wonky log cabins before. So whatever choice I make, it's probably going to be different than the one you would make. So as always, let me know in the comments what you would choose to do. This one is really pretty yowza, isn't it? With these shapes somehow, that up and down shape is, I don't know, a little distracting, disconcerting, something, I don't know. So what do I want to do? Let me see how these are going to kind of look. It's going to be very haphazard, willy-nilly. If I were doing it over again, I think I would make smaller strips and make these narrower in between, so it's more like this. But we'll put these together and see what happens. I can't always take the sections that have the shorter strips in them, but I'm really kind of liking that effect a lot. All right, I've made my decision. No, I haven't. It's too bad I don't have you here and I could take a poll of what should I do. All right, let's make it a rectangle. Half a light black and white print and half a dark black and white print. And we'll take it from there. With strips this wide, I may end up just cutting this one to be narrower. I'm going to end up with some really big blocks, which, you know, isn't necessarily bad. All right, I'm doing a rectangle, half light, half dark. I have quite a long rectangle here, and I think I'll start off with the light side and do this. So we'll cut it. I might have to trim it up a little bit. I don't want to be flinging this stuff around a lot. It just ravels it and causes issues. So it might be a little bit long for it, but it can be easily trimmed, and I can make sure that I can cut it straight or wonky, depending on what I want. And then I can come back and do this strip along the side, and I don't have to do it exactly as it comes off this strip, but for the sake of saving all the work that I did on that strip, I think I just might do that. I decided to mix these two strips that have different black and white prints, and I am finding that I really like these shorter, narrower, I don't know what to call them, depending on their orientation. And I think, nope, can't do that end. I will do, I'm trying to be mindful of where this will end. So here, it will end right there, which means that actually would be all right because it will just cut off that seam. I wouldn't want it like here where it's going to, I don't know, it's just, I don't want this to be so small that it's going to get lost in the process. This would be okay, but do I want those yellows together? Is the question. That's not too bad there. I could take this apart here and then sew that strip on there. All right, I will do that and come back and we'll decide where to put this strip over here. You can see here that I'm choosing not to wonkify any of these strips, which perhaps that will just be because of the start, and perhaps I will start doing that now, particularly when I have this wide strip. I think it would be fairly easy to wonkify that without losing much in the process. And I'll try to alternate these, so because I only have two, so I will have this one up here next time and this one over here just to modify it a bit. So I think I will next put this one here, split that there. Certainly I could be making these strips shorter to begin with, but I think having the longer strips, then I have a better, more options for where I place them and where they get cut off at the edge. And this is the black as it begins to take place straight, unwonkified. And I'm thinking about whether or not I want to wonkify it a little bit. And what do you think? Yeah, let's do it a little bit wonky, enough to know that it was on purpose, but not so much as to have it really off kilter. And then this one, see, this is why I really made these wider strips. This was what I had in mind all along. All right, and so we'll trim that off in sort of the opposite way. And now we're back to this strip, which I've got a longer, I don't want yellow there though. Because this is wonkified, I'm going to lose a lot of that piece. So do I want to just plan on losing it? Now that puts that to, I'm just going to go with however it comes out, am I? No, because, maybe I should just take it as it comes. Yes, no. That is going to have to be such that, well, I could, I guess, wonkify that side. Not sure I want to. Do I really want those to come together like that? I'm beginning to sound like a Beatles song. Come together right now. Or thusly. Save that little piece to add in somewhere else. That's my decision. And now I did slightly wonkify those two sides. I am finding that I think this is too wide. And I think I want to insert, well, no, because maybe that's my best bet. Something like that. And then I'll just continue making my way around. You know how log cabins go. I don't know. This biggest space in there is bothering me right next to this wide space. So I might insert something else in there. I've put on the last strip here. I have squared up the other sides, and now I'm going to square this up because I do want it to be a rectangular block in the end. So there are wonky strips in there, but it will still go together as a straight block. And let me see. And I've been squaring them up to this block as the straight lines. It will still look wonky even though there's really only one strip in there that went wonky. So I want to square it up with here along there, and hopefully also square it up with the straight line there. I have to go back and trim a couple other sides just to make sure, but it's going to look crooked because, you know, there are parts of it that are crooked. Okay, and then this will get straightened here. And finally down here. This is the one that looks most crooked to me. And it may in fact be a little crooked. All right, so those aside, and here's our block. And it, I think, when I do more blocks, it will look more log cabin-y. And doing it again, I think other blocks, I would limit these insertions to being just pretty narrow strips. I'm finding that I'm not really liking these wider strips. Once in a while it's okay, I guess, but having too many of them, it's sort of bulking up down here, I would say. But overall, I think I like it. Let me turn it this way and we can get a little closer, I guess. I like the concept, and I would love to hear your views about it, what you would do differently, what you liked, what you didn't like as much, if you agree with this narrow strips being what we want to do, or if you like the wide strips. Maybe you would like these strips to be really narrow and the colorful pieces to be wider. I think it would be more difficult to have this dark versus light perception. And of course, it's not going to be as straightforward as it seems on the traditional log cabin block, because they're wonkified, they aren't really following that line specifically. So that's going to be it for today. Thank you for joining me on my not so very creative journey today. I hope things are going well for you. Next week, I think I might explore some other options for doing these strips. And maybe in that case, I wouldn't mind having the wider strips in it. But I think for this one, I like the narrow ones. Even in this little corner, those two little bits are nice. So next week, we'll see what the week brings us. I hope to see you then. In the meantime, be well, be safe, be happy, be quilting. Peace out.